All right, we're here with my old friend Tammy Moskaitis. Tammy has decades-long experience in cybersecurity with roles, CISO roles at Home Depot, Venify, Time Warner Cable. I won't bring that one up with you. I've always had my own beef with Time Warner Cable as a New Yorker, now Spectrum. And since then, Tammy has launched her own company called Alliance, which provides executive advisory services. Tammy, thanks for joining us here on Quarantine Diaries.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so we're talking to security folks who are, everyone, right, is challenged by the current situation. But everyone I'm talking to is still quarantined, and a lot of their business is also quarantined, and their staff is quarantined. How are you doing personally?
Health-wise, I'm doing great. But after being on the road for so long, I'm missing that interaction with people, and now I'm not. By nature, I'm a big handshaker and an even bigger hugger. So when we come out the other side of this, I'm going to have to retrain me. And from a business perspective, being Alliance, being a new business after coming out of corporate worlds, it's been interesting. We had a really good start in 2019. Business took off, doing a lot of advisory work and placement work, and working with technology companies. And then COVID hit, and then obviously the retailers and others that we were working with really obviously cut their contract help and their assistance. So that took a big hit. But this year, I've really been working with tech companies and taking off.
So are you working with end user companies or vendors or a mixture of the two?
A mixture of the two. A big one obviously is Simplify that I've been working with, and really building that customer relationship. I kind of gave myself a new title called Chief Customer Security Officer, because that's really what I'm doing, is bringing vendor communities and CISO communities together, and really just showing them how we can all work together, working with the top, building relationships, because that's really what I'm all about. And so this part of my world now has been good, and I'm not on the road as much, obviously, so I'm getting to talk to folks all day long, face to face.
Yeah, and I see from your backdrop that you're in your Key West digs today. How are things in Key West? I visited once. I loved it. I remember chickens walking on the street. I remember basically it's okay to be drinking all day and night, and beautiful sunsets.
Beautiful sunsets for sure. Key West is, we were COVID free the beginning of April. We reopened the island June 1st, and unfortunately we've had as a lot of the other states had seen a big increase in COVID cases, and we've had to close some of our restaurants down, and they've just opened. For a tourist city, that's pretty difficult. Otherwise, we haven't really gone out much. The sunsets are nice. I think that the roosters are populating across the island because of the lack of cars, and so they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful.
Overtaking it. No, it is beautiful. If you have to be quarantined somewhere, Key West certainly seems like a good place to be doing it. And look, coronavirus is, affecting everybody. Security, of course, included in that. And, something I just recently read was John Olczyk, who is a security analyst. He mentioned how security is changing, top 10 ways that security is changing post-COVID, or I don't know if there's going to be a post-COVID for a long time. His top 3 were work for home is now the default model. The perimeter is officially dead. We didn't declare it dead prior, it's now officially 6 feet under. And cloud services are reaping benefits a lot because businesses are trying to stand up these services quickly in light of everyone working remotely. Of course, that comes with security concerns. So those were his top 3. Probably not a surprise to you, right? But things have changed in a dramatic second. It feels like.
They have, I'm seeing a lot, right? I'm seeing so many things more than ever when I'm looking at how everybody's adapting to this work from home norm, I guess is what we're calling it, right? The normalcy of working home. There's nothing normal about it. If you've never done it before, it's even more stressful. I'm seeing a lot of funny things, but I'm also noticing that we're much more relaxed in our environment, right? We're kicking back, our hair's grown out of control, our color, is not all perfect. Everyone gets to see the real side of us, and I think it's kind of a real eye-opening event. The vendors are actually getting some FaceTime with C-suite, which is nice. I think that the CISOs are really getting much more open to vendor meetings virtually, and even getting their teams engaged. And I think it's because they're trying to keep everybody in the loop of what they're working on. I think that there's a negative side as well. And I'm thinking that a lot of us are working much more than we did in the office. I find even myself is that we're working a lot. Teams are trying to get some done. Their budgets have been cut. They had this big list of things that we staff to, and trying to keep our employees employed in those organizations and removing the projects. We're finding that the projects are all getting reprioritized for 2021, and we're still have to worry about the business as usual projects, right? And so that upgrades, end of life, things sometimes we have to actually have our hands on in some cases. So I don't want to fall too far behind in what needs to be done.
Yeah, so very complicating. And then if you're if you're overseeing a security team or you're part of a security team, it's two-pronged, right? Because you need to adjust yourself to the remote work, and then you also have to be handling the fact that your employee ranks have also gone remote, and there's a bunch of new challenges there. So what are you seeing when you're interacting with your clients, when you're talking to I'm sure you have a ton of peers who you still stay in touch with. Like if you were, imagine yourself if you were still at Time Warner or Home Depot or Benefit, like how do you think you would have handled all this?
Well, first of all, is that I always had a lot of people that worked from home, and I always stressed that. So I always had my folks be able to work 1 or 2 days a week from home. It's just the way that I've always run business. So I think that from a pandemic perspective, I think that we run BCDR activities and always try to prepare for the worst, but I don't think anyone ever prepared for this. And so, for me, really partnering with my folks, I think I missed the interaction. I'm the person that walked through the office every day and said good morning to everybody. I walk up and down the hallway saying good morning. September 19th, act like a Pirate's Day or talk like a Pirate's Day. I used to walk around and hand out chocolate coins and, people look at me like I'm crazy.
You were that person, Tammy. You and Michael Scott. Okay.
I was that. So, I think that my folks would miss that interaction. So I think that, being able to yell over the wall is becoming the challenge for some, is that, you're trying to get a hold of somebody via internet or whatever.
Right.
But I don't really see that. I think that my organizations would have been prepared enough to move ahead. I don't know if looking back, because that's a few years ago, if we would have been able to scale so quickly, right? Just from the technology perspective.
Yeah. A lot of companies admittedly have had experience with remote workers. Of course, for a lot, it's a shift to really everyone, but and that scale up process is probably the biggest impediment, right? But there's always been some. So okay, so from a security perspective, what are you hearing in terms of folks tracking more threats and incidents as a result of this new norm, this default model of work from home?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations we've been having about, are you seeing more? Are you not seeing more? And there's been some studies, and for sure, there's been multiple surveys saying that, yes, of course, our incidents have gone up since we've been remote. It's about 25% of the people that really said that they've gone up a lot. But we're even seeing some folks saying that some CISO says that their incidents have doubled since they've been home. The landscape is growing, and a lot of us, between the malicious sites that are coming up or the sites that look like us, they're not us, the ability to do phishing takedowns, et cetera, it's that understanding your entire threat attack surface from your organization's perspective is stuff that a lot of companies just didn't do or do well. So I think that with that in mind, they're like, how do we approach this in a way that we're really going to be able to manage these incidents and to understand what's real and what's not real, and being able to automate some of those as well, right? Being able to be able to use, SOAR, for example, right, is really being able to, automate some of those tier one things that are coming in to move quicker, so we don't have to have all these people working hands-on 24/7, 365.
Yeah, because there really is. I mean, in addition to the normal alert fatigue that has happened, for the last few years at least, COVID has brought on this decision fatigue. I think a lot of folks have become, have that cabin fever. So as a result of that, there's probably some mental exhaustion that's happening. So when you combine that with the normal load of alerts, that's certainly where automation can help alleviate some of that. And if you're a security operations professional, yes, automation, but there's also a lot of teams, I'm sure, are crafting together new playbooks and workflows, use cases to deal with some of maybe the new threats that have scaled up as a result.
Yeah, and the thing is that the playbooks that you mentioned is critical, right? Is that we all have these generic, in most cases, playbooks, right? If this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. But we're finding things that are happening in an environment that folks have never experienced before, or at the magnitude in which they're getting them, right, from working remotely. So I think it's going to be really important that as we come out of this, or as we move ahead, folks are really going to have to focus on how do we manage this? What's the process? Where are the handoffs, right? And what things can we put in place so we don't have to worry about these things ever again? But I mean, you were talking about a little bit about SOC fatigue before. I mean, people are exhausted with looking at all that stuff coming through. And so I think as we really mature the processes and procedures within the organization, and the policies to support those, and the controls on top of that, they're going to be critical.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's all of those alerts, and then there's just the stress of that 2020 has brought us all, right? So,
We've had a lot of stress. We've had a lot of stress, right? I mean,
you
between
don't want to make mistakes you don't want to make mistakes. Yeah.
everything, all right? It's not just COVID. I mean, we have all these other things happening in the world. We've had, weird earthquakes, weird storms. We have a dust storm now coming from the Sahara Desert coming over the Caribbean, right? So we got we have the 17-year cicadas coming up from the earth. It's like end of time. So it's
and of course, all the civil unrest. And right, so it's just it's hard to stay focused. And if you're a security analyst, that's the name of the game, right? You have to be focused. But that's where automation can come in, I'm sure, and some of this orchestration stuff to help to handle some of that load.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think as security professionals, I mean, if I look at just morale and in general, like you said, thank you for saying decades, first of all, for me being in the security. It's just been a couple of decades.
Right, it's been a couple. I never know. It sounded better, but then I was like.
Sounded better, but wow, aging me terribly. But with that being, it behind us, I think that as security professionals, we're naturally resilient, right? We know things are going to change. We have to continually adapt to change, right? So much of what we do today is in the cloud, virtual, et cetera. It really doesn't matter if we're all there to do it. But I also think that, that the stress that's put on those security analysts and those SOC analysts and the people that are having to worry about the rundown, right? I always call it pager fatigue, but I guess it's phone fatigue now. But back in the day, it was pager fatigue, right? Is that it just keeps going off and going off and going off. And I think that, people just don't have the ability or ways to blow off steam like they did before.
Yeah. In terms of the threats or the origination of these alerts, you mentioned phishing before. That, of course, has persisted as folks have transitioned to remote work. That's really probably threat number one for most organizations. What else? What other new risks have cropped up?
It's just a lot of malicious sites in general. Folks are trying to, find ways to break in through your connections. A lot of identity issues, a huge amount of identity issues. They've always been a problem, right? But now identity is probably one of those top things on the,
Exacerbated, yeah.
it's just gone over the top. The amount of persistent hacks in that area have grown exponentially. So, we're seeing a lot of the small stuff we used to see, or the common stuff, it's just grown out of proportion, and more difficult to manage.
Yeah. In terms of, John Olczyk, who I mentioned, that analyst, he said this is the default model. I mean, how do you see things going from here? There is certainly a clamor to return to normalcy, but we're probably not going to get there fully for at least a while. And then maybe as a result of what's happened, a lot of businesses are realizing, well, I mean, the productivity is still there. We got to handle some of these new security risks, but we're not going to change kind of this dynamic. What do you see happening long term?
Well, before this, what did we say, about 10 to 15% of the workforce from the big companies specifically were work from home, right? Very small percentage. And I think a lot of the businesses felt that their business and their processes, everything would just halt if people work from home, just because of lack of trust more than anything else. Because a lot of the big companies have the controls in place, or the ability for a lot of people to work from home. But it was definitely not the lack of secure technology in most cases. However, companies actually seen an incredible increase in productivity, right? So now think ahead and couple that with the ability to eliminate the need for like physical offices, right? The amount of money saved just by allowing folks to work from home. I think that some companies are going to find this as a better norm, right? So they might keep their couple of headquarters, but maybe close some of those smaller ones, and really allow, folks to work from their home offices, and being able to open up that workforce where we're actually going to be able to hire anybody anywhere. So we can truly hire the best person if we can't relocate them. Because a lot of times people can't relocate. They got kids in school, they have this, but I really want to hire that person, right? So if we really are able to open up our doors more to allow folks to work from home, I think our dynamic will be more virtual coming out the other side of this. I think that productivity will continue to go up. And I think, working from home for me is a savings, right? I mean, we only literally have to dress from the waist up. None of us wear business suits anymore.
I put on sweatpants for you today, though, Tammy. So that's a big improvement.
Yeah, but I usually wear suits every day. I'm wearing an Old Navy T-shirt. It's like It doesn't get any better than that, right? But think of all the other expenses around that. Whether it's doggy daycare or gas expenses. I think that as we all allow folks to work from home, coming out of this, and I think it's a win-win. Are we going to continue to have challenges? Yes, but I think that this is the best BCDR experience of our life. We lived a true business continuity disaster recovery event that we could have never, ever practiced to this length.
Yeah, right. So we're, as a result of this, we're probably going to be able to handle those shorter bursts of disruption much more seamlessly, because this thing, I was talking in one of my first interviews. I chatted with a gentleman who's a SOC manager within the hurricane belt, and they had prepped for, being offline for a week or two. That helped them here, but I don't think when they were doing any prep work that they imagined quite this longevity that a pandemic has brought. And then what do you foresee, in terms of any other risks that maybe haven't arrived yet but could continue to be amplified here because of the work from home? Anything else that could be coming down? I like looking into the future a little bit.
Well, I think that we're going to have to improve our video technology, right? The Zooms, the WebEx, the whatever. And the reason is because we have to make sure that certificates aren't being reused from one call to the next. We can't be routed through China. We have to make sure that we are not getting hijacked, and our kids' schooling isn't getting hijacked with inappropriate pictures and people and other things that come through. But I think that we need a more secure way of communicating, right? And making sure we have more controls on how we're actually interacting.
Are more home, because a lot of people are relying, of course, on their home networks. Maybe vulnerability scanning and those sort of things will be extending to new places that they hadn't been prior.
Yeah, I think it's going to be critical. At home my environment's much different, right? Because I'm a security person, right? But your average employee doesn't have a lot of the same controls. I mean, I've worked with one of my customers who let them use their own devices, right? They log in, use their own devices, but their kids are also home using those same devices for school in most cases, right? But we're finding hard drives that have just been trashed, right? So storing information in inappropriate locations, right? Because they might not have access or logged in through the VPN, so they're working locally and putting things on thumb drives. So we have a data issue, right? We have the ability to put some other security controls in place that we don't have. So I think those are like the biggest risks that I can see is the vulnerability management, data leakage, and some of the video technology security concerns.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's finish up talking just a little bit more about that emotional quotient. You mentioned that you're a handshaker. You like being around people. And I wrote an extensive ebook around, and this predates coronavirus, around burnout, specific to cybersecurity operations professionals. And we talked a little bit about some of that being exacerbated now as a result of the work from home. Our SOC, I would imagine that's kind of the beauty of the SOC is that there is that interaction, that being within proximity, being able to tap a fellow analyst or engineer on the shoulder. Are SOCs going to be here in the way that we imagine them, or know them now, rather?
I can see SOCs changing significantly, right? I think we're going to be more and more involved from a video, being able to automate a lot of the basic things. But I see SOCs, that's probably one of the biggest areas of change I'm going to see in the security arena just from a security infrastructure, what I call infrastructure, right? From every domain, I really see that the SOC world's going to change a little bit. But is that good or bad? I think some of it's going to be bad because I'm used to yelling over the wall to ask a question, right? And this is easy because I can sit here and ask you a question because you're up on the screen, but it's really going to require commitment.
Right. So the days of huddling around a couple monitors may be changing, may be behind us eventually. And then what do you foresee in terms of morale as a result of that? I mean, obviously it's going to help to mitigate some of this cybersecurity skills gap because you're going to be able to hire, like you said, someone doesn't have to be within a geographical location. But just morale in general, I mean, could it take its toll? And this is not an industry where we want morale to take its toll, right?
Yeah, and I think it's starting to take a little bit of a toll now, right? The people that I talk to are missing being with people, right? Are missing that interaction. And I think it exasperates it right now because we're sick and tired of being home, right? So there's a difference between it's when everything's normal and we can still work from home, when you're in a pandemic and you're at home and that's all you do is work, right? So there is going to be some shift there. But I really think that the morale piece is a hard thing because like if I'm having a bad day, I want to run down to lunch and blow off steam with my friends, right? Or I want to be able to sit there and complain about whatever. Or if I'm having the best day of my life and after 4 o'clock, let's go, we're gonna all have a drink or something. Now we're doing it virtually, right? Which is bad because I have virtual drinking events all the time. So it seems like that's also a new norm, right? But I think that the ability, the morale in itself, security's changed. I mean, think back 25 years to where we are today. We've changed. We've like I said, we're very resilient and by nature. But I also think that it could really get us down in the dumps if we don't have that interaction that some of us crave.
Yeah, and it's an idea-based discipline as well, right? Those conversations are not just to blow off steam, but I'm sure a lot of good ideas come from them when folks are together. For me personally, the virtual happy hours were okay, and then they they just sort of wore off for me, you know, whereas a physical bar has never worn off for me.
Well, the other thing is that the other part I love going to a bar for, especially living in Key West, right, was we would go down to the sports bars, right? So during football season, we go down to the bar and we sit and we watch football, right? Or, college football or whatever. But there's no sports. Yeah, we were actually in a local bar, and I was looking up at the TV, and I was watching the Yankees World Series game from a bazillion years ago, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I said, am I really sitting here? I know who wins. So it was just.
There's a lot of sports that I go right past that. I don't really know. There's golf. I think golf is back, but and baseball's supposed to come back, but I'm hopeful, but I'm cautiously optimistic, right? Who knows how things are developing. And again, just even those thoughts about there not being football this year is causing me a lot of stress, and that's probably impacting my work. So, all right, I don't know what to do anymore, Tam.
Yeah, me neither. Like I said, I'm missing my trips to Vegas.
Yeah. We're doing the best we can. And this is such an important profession where, because the bad guys, of course, not to sound cliche, but they chomp at the bit, right, when they know that folks are a little weakened because of these things, end users and security pros alike. So, all right, but it's important to talk about it like we just did. So I appreciate your commentary. To close, do you have anything you want to plug about Psi Alliance?
You know what? I'm just really happy about the company. Psi Alliance, in 2 words or less, or 10 words or less, maybe, is really about just building cyber alliances across the globe. And that's what we're all about. So whether it's technology or people or advisory, we're really excited about it. And I'm gonna plug one more quick thing, is that we're gonna be rolling out a product called Cyberturity next week. And it's for small to medium-sized businesses where they can go online and do maturity assessments for themselves. And it's NIST based. And so I'm really excited about that, because it'll afford them the opportunity to do something to get what the big four would offer at a lot of money for a small company to be able to afford to do so.
Okay, that's great. Well, good luck with the company. For everyone listening, if you've gotten this far, thank you. Hopefully you've taken away a couple of nuggets that you can apply back at your organization, or just stuff to think about. Tammy Moskaitis, thank you so much.
Thanks. Always great to see you.